and I didn't see her holding no baby. But then when she came from the bathroom, she was holding the baby. So that means the baby was in the diaper bag, which was kind of crazy. Like, why you ain't got no car seat? Hey y'all, welcome and or welcome back to my channel. My name is Janae, if you didn't know, and today's video is another true crime episode. So if you're ready, let's go. All right, y'all. So here are the new nails. I actually do not like them. Don't like them at all. But I told y'all in the beginning that I was going to share my successes and my failures. And baby, this is a failure. That's why there's only one nail that looked like this, because I could not continue. But once I don't want to flick y'all off, but I started with this hand and I did the little marble thing, whatever. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not going to work. But I had already done it and I had already cured it and I wasn't about to start over. So I was like, let me just paint the rest of them white and we just gonna go with it. And so that's how we got where we are today. And now on to the more important, more exciting things. Shout out to you, Deja. One of my subscribers seen me out while I was having lunch or dinner or a late brunch, I don't know what it was, with my cousins, and she clocked me. It was very unexpected. And if y'all want to hear like a little mini story time from my perspective of how the whole encounter went down, then just stay to the end of the video. I'm gonna tell y'all all about it. And I'm just so happy that that's how my first encounter with one of my subscribers went, because I wasn't looking busted and she was so cute and she was so sweet. And yeah, shout out to you, Deja, and Lawrence, even though I don't think he'd be watching like that. But tell him I said hi anyway. And yeah, with all that out the way, we're going to go ahead and hop into today's case. And if you've been rocking with me for a little minute now, then you already know that we are going from the playgrounds to the national parks of America in alphabetical order. So from Alabama to Wyoming, and today we are in Mississippi. So let's go ahead and take a little trip down to Pascagoula, Mississippi, where on February 13th, 1976, the world was blessed with a beautiful baby girl named Brandy Whitehead. And from everything that I was able to gather, Brandy had at least 2 siblings. Now, there could have been more. I'm not 100% sure, but she had at least 2 siblings. And of the 2 siblings that I know of, she was the oldest. And shortly after she was born, her mom became a single mom. And for the next couple of years, up until Brandy was about 8 years old, it was just her and her mama. And that's not to say whether her dad was in her life at all or not. But at some point, her mama and her daddy was no longer together. But like I said, that changed when Brandy turned about 8 years old. And that is when her mom would meet and marry her stepdad. And the man that Brandy's mom married will become a permanent father figure in Brandy's life. And another permanent thing in Brandy's life was the church. Brandy was a church kid. And I'm not talking about just attend Sunday service, sit your butt down and listen type of church kid. No, Brandy was actually involved in the church by way of the choir. I'm pretty sure it was the children's choir at first, and then moving on, she would join the adult choir. And when I tell you, Brandy had a voice on her. Do you hear what I'm saying? At a very young age. And I mean, being that she was in the church choir, I'm pretty sure y'all know that she could sing, because you're not just about to step up in the church choir, you know. And just hearing the voice that she had on her at that young age, you just knew that she would, if she decided to pursue singing as a career, she would go on to do great things. Now, I don't think that she wanted to pursue singing as like her primary career choice, but during her late teen, early adult years, she would actually be known as a gospel singer. And you can still even hear the track that she recorded to this day. If you just type in her name, Brandy Whitehead, it will come up. I can't think of what it says, but you can hear the song nonetheless. But anyhow, even though Brandy was leading the choir, she was never big-headed about it. She always remained humble. And from everything that I can understand, Brandy's popularity, I want to call it, in the church also translated to school. She was very well known and very popular in school, where she got good grades. And in 1994, when Brandy graduated from Pascagoula High School, she made the choice to, I don't want to say leave the church, because her church was always going to be her church home, but she made the decision to leave the state for college. And she decided to attend Auburn University at Montgomery, which is in Montgomery, Alabama, to study pediatric nursing. And Auburn University at Montgomery is roughly a 3-hour drive from her home in Pascagoula. So it was far enough away for her to, I want to say, have some type of independence and start to grow and thrive as her own self as a young adult, but also close enough for her to drive back if need be. And it's here in Montgomery, Alabama, where she would blossom even more. She was meeting new people, making new friends, and enjoying her best young life. And it is also here through those friends that she would meet a young man named Doran or Dorian. I've seen it printed both ways, but either way, whether his name is Doran or Dorian, he was a student at Alabama State University, and his campus was located roughly 10 minutes away from her campus. So it wasn't hard for them to see each other. And in 2005, the two of them would start dating each other. And they would date for roughly a year and a half before Brandy found out that she was pregnant. And even though they was young and the pregnancy was kind of unexpected, both of them were pretty happy. The only hiccup in regards to the pregnancy was that Brandy was now living in Alabama. And she did not want to be far away from her family, at least during the birth of her child. So she made it very clear to Doran. I'm gonna call him Dorian. We'll call him Dorian. She made it very clear to Dorian that she was going to give birth in Pascagoula, because she wasn't going to do this without her mama and her family's support. She just wasn't going to do it without them around her. Because if you're a woman, if you've ever given birth and you have a good relationship with your mom, there is nothing like having your mama be there for the birth of your child, especially your first child. And Brandy wasn't about to miss out on that, because her mama was thick as thieves. They were close. They were damn near best friends at this point. And whether Dorian gave her pushback on this or not, the end result was that he ended up agreeing to her giving birth in Pascagoula. And on December 26, 1997, Brandy welcomed a beautiful baby girl named Abrony into the world, with Dorian and her family by her side. However, 2 days after she gave birth, Dorian did have to leave and go back to Alabama for work. And neither him nor Brandy was super excited about him having to go back to Alabama so soon, but they didn't worry too much about it, because in a couple of weeks, Brandy would be going back to Alabama as well. But until it was time for Brandy to go back to Alabama with Abrony, she just soaked up all the love that she could from her family being a new mom. Really, I can only imagine the lullabies that baby was hearing coming from her mama. So yeah, while Brandy was in Pascagoula getting acclimated to being a new mom, Dorian was back in Alabama planning a huge surprise for her. And according to him, Brandy was supposed to return back to Alabama, I want to say January 14th or 15th of 1998. And when she got there, he was gonna propose to her. And he said that he know they was kind of young. He was 20, she was 21, but they had a baby now, and he wanted to do the right thing. So he was gonna propose to her when she came back. Unfortunately though, he would never get that chance. Just a couple of days before she was set to return, Brandy's roommate told Dorian that something happened and Brandy wouldn't be coming back to Alabama. So it's January 12th, 1998, 2 weeks and 3 days after Brandy has given birth to Abrony. And she's back at home at her parents' house, just, you know, being a mom, doing the things that moms do. And her auntie goes to her parents' house where she's staying with her baby. I'm not really sure if it was a scheduled visit or if she was just popping by. But whatever it was, auntie pulled up, probably thinking that she about to dote over the baby while Brandy does whatever it is that she needs to do. Maybe take a shower, maybe get a little bit of rest, whatever. But that's not what happens. She actually ends up coming across the worst thing ever, and that is Brandy lying in a pool of blood, clearly hurt, and no sign of baby Abrony. Now obviously the police are called, and once the police and paramedics get there, they quickly realize that there's nothing that they can do for Brandy. And so her body's sent off to the coroner for autopsy, and an investigation begins. And not only are they investigating the murder of Brandy, but they're also investigating the kidnapping of baby Abrony. So first things first, they need to know where Dorian was when this happened. And when they talk to him, he's very cooperative, and he says that he was actually in Alabama at Alabama State University registering for classes, and he was able to provide proof that this is where he was that whole day. And so because of this, they were able to quickly rule him out as a suspect, along with Brandy's family members. They quickly realized that none of them had anything to do with this. And being that the last murder in Pascagoula was, I want to say, 2 to 3 years prior to this, news of Brandy's murder and Abrony's kidnapping spread very quickly. And by the second day of the investigation, they already had valid tips. And one of the tips came from a manager at an express title pawn place. And she said that on the day of the murder, it was raining, and she remembers a woman coming in with a diaper bag. And even though this woman had a diaper bag, she didn't see a baby at first. But the lady had went to the bathroom, and when she came back from the bathroom, she was holding the baby. And that's when she realized, like, oh shit, she had a baby. And when she came out holding the baby, she was like, okay, that was a little weird, but whatever. So she and the woman started chit-chatting, and they started talking about being moms and about, labor and yada, yada, yada. And she ended up calling the cab for the woman. And that was pretty much the end of her interaction with the woman. However, the day after she had seen the woman, a man came in and he started telling the manager at the pawn shop about his niece who had been murdered and his great niece who had been kidnapped. And she started thinking, like, damn, I wonder if that was the woman who came in here the other day, because our interaction, it was a little weird. Like, she came in and I didn't see her holding no baby, but then when she came from the bathroom, she was holding the baby. So that means the baby was in a diaper bag, which was kind of crazy. Like, why you ain't got no car seat, right? So she said that she grappled with herself a little bit about calling the police, but she ended up calling the police just in case. And she was able to give the detectives the information for the cab company that she called for the lady. And so after they got that information from the manager at the pawn shop, they then got in contact with the cab company and were able to get in contact with the cab driver. And he said that when he picked up the lady from the pawn shop, he initially didn't see a baby at all. He said that he saw the baby bag, but he didn't see no baby. But as they was driving, he did end up hearing a baby. And that's when he realized that she had the baby inside of the baby bag. And so he asked her, like, girl, why you got that baby in a bag? And her response was to keep it from the rain. And he was just like, okay. The cab driver's name is Daryl Olson, by the way. I don't know if I said that or not, but anyhow, he said that he dropped the lady off at Sea Cove Apartments on Eden Street. And when it was time to pay, she paid with a $10 bill, but the $10 bill looked like it had dried blood on it. But he really couldn't tell if it was new or old. And so he took his payment and went on about his business. He completed his day and then went home. And once he got there, he did see a partial news story about a kidnapped baby, but he didn't see nothing about a murder. And so he didn't put two and two together between the blood on his $10 bill and a murder, because he didn't see nothing about a murder. All he saw was something about a kidnapping. And he really didn't think too much more about it after that until the police called him. And after he gave his statement to the police, he also gave them a description of the passenger. And like I told y'all before, he had already told them where he had dropped her off at. And so with this information, they decided to stake out the Sea Cove Apartments. But after a couple of hours of staking out the Sea Cove Apartments, they was coming up empty. They didn't see her nowhere. But they did end up getting the tip while they was there, and the tip said that she wasn't there. She wasn't at the apartments. However, her boyfriend was in the apartment with the baby. So they follow this lead and they go to the apartment where it's said that this unknown man is with this baby, and they go knock on the door. And when they do, a man answered. Now, I've seen two different things in regards to what happens when this man answered the door. One of the things that I've seen was that when the man opened the door, he was holding the baby. And then the other thing that I seen was that when the man opened the door, he wasn't holding the baby, but the officers could see a baby in the background, whether that was on the bed, in a playpen, or whatever. But whichever one it was, whether he was holding the baby or the baby was off in the distance, he was arrested. And when he was arrested, he was kind of confused. He was like, what the fuck is going on? Why has y'all arrested me? He didn't resist, but he was definitely confused as fuck. And they ended up explaining everything to him once he was taken down to the station. Now, because he wasn't the main suspect, they still needed to catch the lady. And so while he was down at the station, probably being questioned, there was other detectives still staking out the apartment. And about 30 minutes after he was arrested, here comes the lady frolicking to the apartment, oblivious to the situation about her boyfriend just being arrested. and she was promptly arrested as well. And the two people who ended up being arrested were Latasha Taylor and Aubrey Cathcart. And during their questioning, Aubrey said that him and Latasha had been in a relationship for a little minute, but recently they have moved in together about 2 months ago. And basically, he don't know what the fuck they talking about, because as far as he know, that baby is his baby. At least that's what Latasha said. And Latasha, she over in another interrogation room, but she not talking. She not saying too much. But by this time, they had already identified baby Abrony as the kidnapped baby, and they had reunited her with her grandparents, and she was currently being looked over by the hospital. So they knew that that wasn't his baby. They knew that this was baby Abrony, but apparently he didn't know that. And eventually, Latasha ends up confessing to the kidnapping and the murder. And she ended up being charged with capital murder and kidnapping, while Aubrey was charged with accessory after the fact to both. However, his charges ended up being dropped because it was determined that Latasha had acted alone in the murder and in the kidnapping. And even though she did confess in her interrogation to the murder and the kidnapping, she would plead not guilty and go to trial. And it is at this trial where she ended up taking the stand in her own defense. And during her direct examination, she completely changed her story. She said that it wasn't her, it was actually her cousin. Her cousin's name is Jackie, who went by Shell. She pretty much said that she and Shell had went to Brandy's house to congratulate her on the baby, you know, do like what we would call a sip and see without the sip, just to see the baby. And while they was there, Shell tried to steal something, and Brandy noticed it and she called her out. And that's when she said that her cousin Shell attacked Brandy. And after the attack, Shell just fled and left Latasha there looking stupid. And that's when she heard the baby crying. And once she heard the baby crying, she got really scared. Not that she already wasn't scared, but she said that she got really scared and she panicked and just took the baby, because she didn't want to leave the baby there alone, because she didn't know when somebody would return home. And yeah, she just left with the baby. And she didn't call the police because she didn't want to get her cousin in trouble. She said she was more scared for Shell than she was for herself. Now, the thing about it is, Latasha's middle name is Michelle. So in my mind, I'm thinking that she picked her cousin Shell as the one who did this crime, because saying that her cousin Shell did it is inadvertently telling the police that she did it, because essentially she could be Shell. I know that probably don't make no sense, but I hope it make a little bit of sense. Like, she's inadvertently telling on herself through a cousin whose name is a replica of hers. Anyways, her attempt at blaming somebody else was futile, because there was neighbors who testified against her, saying that Latasha claimed that she had a baby on Saturday, and when she came home on Monday, she had told everybody that this is a baby that she had. The baby's name was Destiny, and that, like I said, she had the baby on Saturday. And some of the neighbors even said that they had tried to help her out with the baby, and while they were, you know, taking care of the baby, changing the baby's diapers, they noticed that the baby's umbilical cord wasn't there no more. You know, the little piece that stays on until it falls off. They noticed that the baby's umbilical cord had already fallen off. And that was not typical for a 2-day-old baby. And so it kind of raised a little bit of suspicion in them when they had saw the news story about a kidnapped baby. And I ain't even gonna hold you. Them probably the ones who told them that she wasn't at the house and that her baby daddy was at the house. So yeah, while they was testifying, I'm pretty sure Latasha was sitting there looking stupid in the face like, damn. Because girl, you really tried it. But yeah, being as how Latasha was lying like a motherfucker and they never got a clear confession from her, the prosecution had to pretty much theorize what they believed happened. And their theory is pretty much that Latasha at some point saw Brandy at a fair in Mississippi. And because they went to school together, it wasn't weird for Latasha to approach Brandy and speak. And at some point during this interaction, she either found out that Brandy was pregnant or it was evident that Brandy was pregnant. And this is when she started plotting, because she had this boyfriend at home, Aubrey, who was pretty much one foot out the door already. And she started to stalk Brandy. And once Brandy had her baby, she called her up on that day, presented herself as a happy, acquaintance, because they weren't friends in school, but just somebody who was happy to see her have the baby and who just wanted to come congratulate her and see her baby. And when she got to Brandy's home, that is when she attacked her and kidnapped her baby. Because prior to this point, Latasha had claimed to be pregnant multiple times, and she had also claimed multiple miscarriages, which were all unfounded during the investigation. They couldn't find any record of her ever being pregnant, and they could not ever find any record of her having a miscarriage. Because if you don't know, when you have a miscarriage, it is crucial that you have a D&C. I don't know. I don't remember what the D&C stands for, but it's basically a procedure to remove any remaining tissue from said pregnancy from your uterus, because leaving this tissue in can cause infections and it can cause serious problems to the mom. And so it's crucial that you have these procedures, and investigators just couldn't find any evidence of a D&C. So they don't think she ever miscarried as many times as she said. I think it was 3. So yeah, they basically think that she was pretty much lying to any and everybody, especially her boyfriend, about being pregnant and about having miscarriages. And this time her boyfriend was really about to leave her, and once she found out that Brandy was pregnant, she was able to murder her and steal her baby to present to Aubrey like, yeah, this your baby. So yeah, basically after so many times of lying about a miscarriage, she finally found somebody who was pregnant, and she went to her home and stabbed her 151 times with not one but 2 knives, and kidnapped her baby to present to Aubrey as his own. Once all of the evidence was presented and the defense tried to defend Latasha, the case was turned over to the jury. Now, this was a capital murder case, so the jury had a couple of options. They could find her not guilty, which means she would be let off completely, or they could find her guilty. And if they found her guilty, they could recommend a death sentence, they could recommend a sentence of life with the possibility of parole, or they could recommend a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. And when the jury came back, they decided that she was in fact guilty, and they recommended a sentence of life without the possibility of parole, which is exactly what she got, life without the possibility of parole. And this is exactly what Brandy's mom wanted. She did want justice for her daughter. She did want to see the person who committed this crime behind bars, but she didn't want to put them to death, because she was a Christian woman. She was heavy in the church, and I don't know, I think she couldn't bring herself to want death for someone else. However, if you watch Brandy's daughter's TikTok, Abrony, the kidnapped baby TikTok, I think she probably wanted to see Latasha dead. I don't know. I don't know. Can I link it? Now, Latasha tried to appeal her conviction twice. However, both of those appeals were denied because, girl, really? Really? Sit down. Take your punishment, because you did what you did, and you did it with your whole chest. So serve this sentence with your chest, my girl. Now, as for baby Abrony, Brandy's daughter, she is a grown woman now. She is as beautiful as can be. From what I can tell, she's a creative, and she's a mom now. She is a mother to twin girls, and she also has a baby boy as well. And she's just living her life, and I have absolutely no doubts that Brandy would be so proud of her. If ain't nobody told you, which I'm sure they have, your mama would be so proud of you. And girl, she would have been a bomb grandma, in my opinion. Like, I can only imagine her as a grandma. And y'all, I'm really about to cry right now because I don't know. I don't know. All the cases touch me in a different way. But thinking about Brandy being a grandma, like, I just think she would have been amazing. And I think I based that off of what I've seen of her mom, like Brandy's mom, and the type of person that I seen her to be. Because I don't think I said it, but Abrony was raised by Brandy's parents. Now, as far as her daddy, Doran or Dorian, whichever one it is, she called him a sperm donor, so I'm just gonna assume that he wasn't in her life like that. And I'm sorry, sir, but that really sucks for you because it seems like she's turned out to be a wonderful individual. Sorry you missed out, man. Like, I don't know what to say. Sorry. But yeah, y'all, that is all I have for today's case. Thank you all so very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Okay, so now let me tell y'all about meeting one of my subscribers. Okay, so I'm out with my cousins having a lunch date. I got one of my kids with me, my daughter, and my cousin got two of her kids with her. We sitting at a table, I want to say on the grassy area. I don't know. And I take my daughter to the bathroom. When I come out of the bathroom, I'm looking at the table that me and my cousins was sitting at, and it's empty. Nobody's there. So I'm like, okay, they must have moved. And then I see my cousin's daughters in the distance. So I'm like, okay, cool, they must be over there. So I'm walking straight towards where I see my cousin's daughters. I don't see my cousins yet, by the way. I'm walking straight to where I see them. I let my daughter run ahead, and from my left, is it the left? Yes. From my left, I hear, excuse me, and I'm not thinking nothing of it because I'm not thinking they talking to me. So I continue on, and then I hear, excuse me, again. And so I look, and I'm like, me? And they like, yeah, you do YouTube? And I was like, yeah. Like, I was so shy. It caught me so off guard. And she's just like, oh yeah, I love your videos. I'll be watching all the time. I was just telling him, yada, yada, yada. And so we have a little chit chat. I give her a hug and I tell her that I'm gonna shout her out. So yeah, shout out to you, Deja. That really warmed my heart. I was so happy. I was shocked as hell. I was confused for a second too. But I thank you. Thank you for that. So if any of y'all ever see me out doing anything, just, you know, say what's up. Like, oh, that just made my heart smile, y'all. If this world were mine, I will place at your feet all that I own. It go in, out, do it real slow. Ooh, girl, you can't sing. And now on to the more important, why do I keep trying to say that word? I don't even know if that's a word. Inciting. I think so. It doesn't matter. I hope I remember to tell y'all the story. Shit. Let me write it. Let me write it down because I will forget. I'm gonna forget. Hold on. So now let's move along. No. So now let's move on to what? So with all that, no. So let's take a little trip down to Pascagoula, Mississippi, where Brandy Whitehead, no. As far as not having a partner in the home to deal with the day-to-day, you know, and in turn, wait, girl, please. And the man that her mom married will become a staple father figure for the rest of Brandy. No. Oh my gosh, you're fumbling this today. And I don't know if y'all have ever encountered people who have a special talent or who are, no, just don't say that. Just fuck it. Hold on. Dorian, what's his name? I say it in my head every 5 minutes, but then when it's time to say it out loud, I can't talk. And one of the things that I seen, what the hell? And the two people who ended up being arrested were Latasha. I was about to say his last name. Okay, let's try again. And because they never got a real confession from Brandy. No, not Brandy, baby.